This is Michael Popok, and it's time for Legal AF After Dark. The United States Supreme Court made an unusual ruling to try to save actual children at the border who were dying because of Texas policy interfering with federal immigration and border control policy in a new lawsuit, which is Homeland Security versus Texas. We had a strange combination of justices joining together to protect those children, at least temporarily, and to send a message to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in Texas about where they are in terms of voting if and when they ever get a case of Texas trying to interfere with immigration and border control policy. Confused? You won't be after listening to our most recent edition of Legal AF. Take a listen. Got the state of Texas, who else, who has decided that they want to conduct their own foreign policy, their own COVID policy, their own commander-in-chief policy, their own women's right to choose policy, and the rest of it has taken on the Biden administration and Homeland Security Department again. They've decided that they want to do something, a terrible bit of performative theater and political theater by rolling out miles of razor wire at the Rio Grande border between Mexico and the United States. And all that's done is prevented the Border Patrol, which is the federal agency that's responsible for implementing federal exclusive supreme policy in the area of immigration and in foreign affairs and foreign policy to do their job, including when migrants such as a mother and two children who died in the beginning of January because the Border Patrol couldn't get through the razor wire to reach them and they drowned. That is what we're talking about, people. We're talking about migrants who are trying to breathe free and come to this country and are willing to risk it all through the Rio Grande and are being, at the last moment, when their hopes and dreams are being extinguished, right, because they're about to die, Texas offers them not a life preserver, but barbed wire. And so the Border Patrol and the Office of Homeland Security, Biden administration, filed an appeal to the United States Supreme Court from the Fifth Circuit, which is again that thorn in the side of the Biden administration in the Fifth Circuit. What the MAGA do when they want to have policies like this is that they go run to some MAGA judge, federal judge in Texas, usually like in a place like Abilene that has one justice or one judge, one federal judge that's MAGA. And then they take it to the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans, who leans completely right. And then they get some wacky ruling, and then the Supreme Court has to deal with it. And so we thought this was like sort of a no-brainer when even though the Fifth Circuit said, we're going to do an emergency appeal and we're going to have oral argument on February 8th and all of that. But in the meantime, the razor wire stays up. And that's not good enough for the Biden administration to let people die at the border. And so they ran to the United States Supreme Court on an emergency application coming out of Texas, which is Alito country, for those that follow which justice is assigned to which region. And the full panel, without a written decision, but we know who dissented. I'll leave you at that. The full panel of the United States Supreme Court decided the issue. And only 5 of the justices thought that the supremacy clause, the United States Constitution, is a real thing, which what I was taught in law school and forever until this current version of the United States Supreme Court, that in certain areas of related to federal policy, immigration, the ability to conduct foreign policy and affairs, that is an exclusive jurisdiction for the federal government and our brand of federalism. And it ousts the ability of states to interfere and legislate in that area. Like Texas can't have its own ambassador, right? Texas can't declare war on another country. Texas, because they're a state, and states have certain powers that are given to them, and there's provisions of the Constitution that anything not reserved to the federal government is reserved to the states. Okay, I get that. But in the areas where the country reigns supreme, the federal government reigns supreme, they have exclusive jurisdiction. They have forever, except Gorsuch, Alito, Kavanaugh, and Thomas don't believe that. And so they were willing to let the barbed wire stay in place, believing that that Texas had the better argument, more likely to win on appeal and the Fifth Circuit, therefore, than the others. But Amy Coney Barrett, I presume because dead children were involved and she's got 9 children. I don't know. I want to hear your view on this one, Karen. Joined with John Roberts, along with Sotomayor, Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, to stop and block the razor wire and let it be cut down by Border Patrol while the appeal continues to win its way through the Fifth Circuit. Now, so the Supreme Court hasn't made a substantive merits ruling, but has signaled to the Fifth Circuit where they're ultimately going to end up, at least on a 5-4 vote. What did you make of it? And what did you make of Amy Coney Barrett joining with Roberts? Because she rarely does things of judicial courage. And why do you think she ended up there? And what happened to the other ones and the supremacy clause? What's your theories on all of that?
So this is a really tricky issue, because this is really ultimately a complete and utter failure by Congress, right? Congress, the current situation that we're in can't stay. We need to have borders that are secure. We need to have a lawful way for people to come to this country. The reason there are people who are dying at the border is because we are not equipped as a country to have people just come in the numbers that they're coming, the ways that they're coming. We're just not set up to handle it. Not even just the entrance, but cities, sanctuary cities, where these migrants are choosing to come and getting bused, are also feeling the massive punishing amount. I mean, even New York City, they're running out of beds for people. You have a right to have, anyone who asks has a right to be housed and have a bed, and they're running out. And there are people who are on the street. And so there's absolutely a complete and utter failure of Congress in this regard. And I think we have to call it out. And as a result, when you have people like Governor Abbott, who are willing to be inhumane and cruel and put people's lives at risk, it really creates a situation that is untenable. And of course, there is no way. I mean, the supremacy clause is such a part of every part of our laws and legal system that at the end of the day, that has to win, and that has to win out. But I think what I make of this is just the sheer frustration that the justices are even having about look, we can talk about Texas tort law and the ability to protect your borders, and they sued them. They basically Texas did this under this weird tort law, basically saying that the damage here is you're cutting my razor wire. I mean, that's not what this is about. This is not a case about cutting razor wire. This is a case about the failure of our immigration system and the fact that it does fall on all of the states. And so to me, this was a very technical ruling on a application to vacate an injunction pending appeal, right? This is not even on the merits necessarily of the issue. It's just whether or not the supremacy clause applies and whether Texas can use their state tort law to restrain federal border patrol agents. And at the end of the day, right, they can't possibly say that an injunction was appropriate, which is what the Fifth Circuit allowed, because injunctive relief requires an irreparable injury, and the cost of razor wire or salaries of Border Patrol agents is not irreparable. But at the end of the day, something has to happen here, because this is untenable. And nobody wants to. There are so many areas where Democrats and Republicans could agree, but the Republicans don't want to give the Democrats a win. Period. Full stop. Even if they agree on the issue, they're never going to do something that gives them a win, because this allows them to say, look, Joe Biden's failing. He's failed. Look at his administration. Look what's happening. And everybody feels it. Everybody sees it, especially the people who want to come here for a better life and should have a right to come here safely, but also orderly. And you just can't, this situation is untenable, and shame on the Republicans who are using them, truly using them to make a point and try to get their chosen dictator elected president, and then he can turn around and save the day. So this really just pissed me off on so many levels and was frustrating, because it's not about razor wire and the salaries of patrol agents, right? That's not what this is about. And so if we're just going to focus on that, we're not focusing on the issue. And so we have to call out Congress, in my opinion, for this utter failure, because there are lives at stake.
Yeah. We're going to see what the Fifth Circuit does next, because just because the Supreme Court has signaled that they have 5 votes, or John Roberts has 5 votes to reinstitute or reinstall the supremacy clause and put the federal government back where it belongs, which is regulating exclusively in the area of immigration. But the Fifth Circuit has been known to thumb their nose at their bosses at the Supreme Court, and the appeal continues at the Fifth Circuit with this ability for the Border Patrol to take down the razor wire in the meantime. But that doesn't mean the Fifth Circuit doesn't rule in favor of Texas and tries to reinstall the barbed wire, the razor wire. And then we'll have to see at a substantive level what a Supreme Court would do. But I think the signal is already being sent. I mean, you'd have to really decide at the Fifth Circuit that you're going to thumb your nose at the Supreme Court if you're going to rule against the Biden administration at this point. But there's only one place where you can find out information about the developments on this. And as people, I think, have come to appreciate, we follow our stories and we update our stories both on the podcast and on Hot Takes in real time as they happen. Well, there's an example of what we do every week, twice a week, only on the MeidasTouch Network, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel, and then on audio podcast platforms of your choice. If you know all about Legal AF and you've seen the episode, we appreciate you being part of our audience. Take that clip, send it off to somebody in your life, and ask them to join us. If you don't know what I'm talking about, welcome. That was Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok, and we do that twice a week and on audio podcast platforms. And then the leaders of Legal AF get together and we do updates about every hour right here on this network. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.